Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dafa discussions. Hey Louis.
Hey Michael. Hey everyone, how you going?
Now, one of the things that we thought would be really interesting to talk about and discuss is people must think if it's of the Buddhist school, if this Falun Dafa is of the Buddhist school, then how is it that you guys haven't got shaved heads and off into the forest and just sit in meditation all day? Like you already know that Louis is a gardener like me. I run a busy business, married with children, and Louis is probably right behind me. Um, there's that smile from a young man
Working
who
on
knows his freedom.
it.
And so, one of the things we thought we'd discuss today is how did this practice of Falun Dafa integrate into our lives as our lives have changed? I guess for me, over 20 years has been quite a long time. For Louis, what was it, brother, 5 years or something?
Yeah, it's been 5 years.
5 years, which
Yeah.
to anyone's reckoning is not a short amount of time either. And sort of how does it fit into everyone's lives? How is this Buddhist practice so powerful, yet seemingly so flexible? Which, yeah, it elicits those kind of questions. And what I'll do actually a little bit is I'm going to interview Louis. I'm going to ask Louis questions and then elaborate further on whatever Louis says on how that same question applies to me. Now, Louis, question one. Now, tell me, how is it that something uh, that has been so powerful and powerfully beneficial in your heart and mind, how is it that it's integrated into your life? We know, everyone knows now there's 5 exercises that we do in our practice of Falun Dafa, which seems quite a lot. Everyone knows now that most of us study the main teaching, Juan Falun, every day. And on top of that, everything else you do. How did that, how does that all integrate into your life? Like, what's your daily routine with having to do the practice?
Yeah, I try and do the exercise when I get home from work, and is I start pretty early as a gardener, so
Me
it's
too.
hard to it's hard to get up early, and then that's probably something I can work on. um, yeah, so I usually, if I have time, I do them after work, and um, I don't always do all five. Sometimes only do a few of them, depending on how much time I have. Um, yeah, and it really helps. Kind of, as soon as you start the exercise, it really changes my mind straight away to in that kind of peaceful, serene place, and whatever kind of thoughts or things I'm hung up on during the day are kind of unwoven as I do the exercises, and
Mm.
um, kind of gives me a bit more perspective over kind of the mundane issues I might be thinking about, trying to step back and let them go. So it's very useful for that. Um, yeah, and as for reading John Falun or other texts, um, yeah, I do. I try and read at least some of it every day, and sometimes I'm better at reading more, and sometimes less. And whenever I read more, I notice straight away how much of a big impact that makes on um, how I live my life and the kind of the thoughts that come up during the day, how I change as a person, how I change my thinking to be more in line with compassion and truth and forbearance. Whereas if I don't read as much, then I run into some more problems in the way I think about things,
Yeah,
getting more upset or angry or yeah, not being as forgiving or compassionate. Yeah,
yeah. They're biggies. They're very
yeah,
big ones, especially in our world today.
yeah,
And that's and also, what have you heard directly from uh, Teacher Lee regarding what it is that a practitioner does each day with their study and their exercises, etc. What kind of standards have you heard from Teacher Lee that he tells us about?
yeah. I guess to live in a way that is isn't emphasizing your own personal gain, um, in the sense of stepping on other people's toes and that kind of thing, to get your way, or it's more about letting go of the self interest and caring more about other people. Um, yeah, it's also, I guess, teacher also talks about saving people and helping other people understand a better way to live. I guess,
Mm.
um, whether that's through Falun Dafa or knowing how bad the persecution is in China.
Mm.
You know
Mm.
what? Yeah.
And other religions as well. I remember reading Teacher mentioning that if you're doing another Orthodox teaching as well, a proper teaching, I'll approve of that as well.
Mm.
And that's one thing that really impressed me. Just to quickly interject is Teacher Lee's not trying to make everyone Falun Dafa practitioners, and he clearly approves of the other religions that they focus on the character, on the moral
Mm.
character, and returning to these very traditional moral characters to bring that harmony and peace. So I just thought I'd quickly jump in there with that one. But Louis, did from what you've studied, does Teacher Lee set strict requirements for how much you've got to exercise each day, how much you've got to study each day? What have you? What do you understand as that requirement?
Um, yeah, I think the standards are high, but I think it's also flexible. Um, so from what I remember, teachers says to study the file more. He doesn't give a limit or a time limit,
Very
or
right. Very right.
and when you have time, you can do the exercises. That's my understanding of what he said. Um,
Beautiful.
yeah.
And that's really everyone. The points I guess I'm subtly making with my guinea pig here is that a lot of what the Chinese government tries to say about Falun Dafa is just so bogus. And I hope you will all have watched our last episode, which highlights stuff that is being put out there that speaks so bogusly about the practice. And whatever true elements they do bring up um, are so disgracefully twisted and contorted so as to make them look absolutely awful. And this has just been a perfect look at it because Louis has been practicing 5 years, so you can believe he's got a very good breadth of everything that Teacher Lee has spoken about. and read Juan Falun that many times, like I have. And but even then, you can see that what Falun Gong brings is the practice. Teacher Lee brings all of these amazing things. All of these millions of people around the world have had incredible things happen in their minds and hearts to bring that kind of peacefulness in their bodies. I don't think Louis or I have anything miraculous to tell you about, my second head that disappeared when I practiced Falun Dafa. But there are so many practitioners around the world, especially in China, who do have those stories. Also, the fact that monks in temples are practicing Falun Dafa, nuns in monasteries are practicing Falun Dafa. It truly shows itself to be something very powerful in mind, body, and spirit, which in its way is what everyone has been looking for, whether we've focused on spirit or not. And what Louis has just made very clear is Louis has taken this practice and drawn it so closely and done with it what he feels he can do in his life. Like me, to give you a quick rundown, because of my 20 years, I'll give you the short version. When I started to practice Falun Dafa, I was a single man personal trainer. So I literally, I think in another episode I'd elaborated on this. I only worked 2 or 3 hours in the morning and 2 or 3 hours in the evening because that's when my clients would train. And so I would literally sit in a park and I do all 5 exercises fairly much each day. And it was the most glorious part of my day. Absolutely beautiful. And because I was a single man, whenever I got home, I had more time than I knew what to do with. And I was never good at partying. I was a terrible partier. And so I would literally sit down and just listen to the audio lectures of teacher in China. I would read Zhuan Falun. The Zhuan Falun is the text version, but it's a compilation of about three of his lectures around China put into one book. And exactly like Louis says, if I, which of course I did, would spend a week here, there, or whenever, and I wouldn't do much of the exercises, or I wouldn't study much, I could I could feel that I would miss it. I would miss it because the energy that actually comes from Zhuan Falun or watching the lectures or doing the exercises, I personally would liken to when maybe some of you watching have gone to Thailand or to India or to China even, and you've walked into ancient monasteries where you've got monks truly doing the most powerful things and you could feel it. Or you've walked, let's say, into Sicily, into an 11th century church of the, whether it be the Norman era or whatever. And you can literally feel the energy coming from the statue of Jesus, let's say. And I've had many friends in the past share these things with me, where when they were in Thailand, a couple of the monasteries they went into, a couple of the Buddhist temples they went into, they knew as soon as they walked in that there was something beautiful there. Well, what Teacher Lee has given to every person on earth who chooses to have a look at it, in my from my perspective, is the same. Something truly powerful that can truly um, guide you spiritually. But that spiritual guidance also incorporates your mind and your physical body. So it's truly an immense thing. And so I went from being a personal trainer, and then when I quit out of that industry and went into, I think I was in the steel parts industry, running a warehouse and then on the road traveling. Um, I was still a single man, so I had less hours to play with. So I would, like Louis, get home. Um, I'd read for an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours, And then I would actually go out to a park in the night and just stand in the park and just do the exercises, which, oh my goodness, they're so beautiful. They're so beautiful. The energy in them is just so beautiful. And of course, I stayed with that industry for a little while, and then I went and I moved and I just did humanitarians work with the savings that I had. And then that's when I met the love of my life and married, and I now have a 17-year-old boy. And so, of course, from the beginning point of having a serious relationship, you're busy. You're busy. And so there were definitely days every week where I would miss the exercises. Generally, I wouldn't miss the study because Teacher Lee, as Louis has just mentioned, has said, study the far and study the far more. And I liken that very much to if you want to become a quantum physicist, you'd better do all of your study and you better spend donkey's years doing it because it is something immense. Well, spiritually, I understand that spiritually things are enormously more, enormously bigger than any uh, human pursuit, I guess, of another kind, whether it be flying planes or being an astronaut or being a quantum physicist. That is just infinitely bigger and more comprehensive. So, the study element to keep us on track, to keep just reinvigorating the fact that you have to work on your own heart. You have to do this, Michael Anderson. You have to do this, Louis. And that what Teacher Li Hongzhi is providing is complete there for you. But what when you take it into your heart, the practice itself, the development of your own heart in compassion, kindness, and truthfulness, and actually identifying the parts of yourself that aren't real great. That's a real mission. That's a real mission. And so, during the course of my what's been nearly 18 years of marriage, my exercises have gone up and down each week, but my study has always pretty much stayed the same because it's to me that is the most important part and the part that keeps me on key for when I'm out there in the world or with my family. It doesn't matter what it is. Um, Whenever I start to get a little bit antsy about something or a different kind of thing comes up, it's the study that keeps my mind in check. You are developing yourself in a Buddhist school practice. That means selflessness, son. That's what it says to me every day. And it works. I've become a very different person. Louis, when you first took in Falun Dafa, you mentioned in one of the episodes that a couple of the relationships with your family changed, got better.
Mm.
You mentioned something about is it your mother-in-law, I think, or your auntie or something that was quite a strange person to you at one stage, but because of
My grandma,
your
maybe.
grandma, because of your practice, you began to see things differently and look at her differently.
Mm.
Now, actually, what Louis has hit upon back then in another episode is actually fundamentally, I believe, what we practice for, because we fundamentally change our minds in the way of this truth, compassion, and tolerance. But the finer tuning of these things, honestly, is quite incredible, but fairly simple to explain. Louis, tell us more about how you went from looking at your grandmother in a certain way before you were studying, and then how you actually change your perception of that simply through changing your perspective of yourself or your character.
Mm. Yeah, well, my grandmother's she's like a very traditional kind of Christian lady. She's really lovely. And in the past, my values were very different. Um, so, um, Yeah, and I didn't exactly agree with a lot of religious things. Although I was kind of loosely spiritual, I wasn't didn't really understand religion or why people are that way at all. Um, and yeah, I guess yeah, in no way did I really understand where she was coming from with that, and to the point of, I wouldn't think very nice things about her or make jokes about the kind of person she is. um, but never to her face, and I knew she was a lovely person. But um, yeah, so after I started really reading Falun Dafa's text, John Falun, and um, yeah, I kind of shifted my entire perspective about where I'm at and where I should be and what I should be doing in life and what I shouldn't be doing, roughly, to live a more wholesome existence. And so, with that in particular, it wasn't. It's hard to pinpoint one kind of thought that I had about her, but it just kind of changed, and I knew it wasn't right to say or think those kinds of things, and I now like understood exactly where she was coming from because, in a way, Falun Dafa and Chuan Falun, while it's not the same as those other religions, it kind of reflects those similar traditional values and spiritual principles of compassion and those kinds of things. Um, so yeah, I was able to really see her for who she was instead of living in my little modern bubble of
And did she
of values.
she must have seen the changes in you, surely.
Yeah, she noticed that I'd become more open to her and more caring about her and that kind of thing. Yeah,
And she
yeah,
knows you practice Falun Dafa?
yeah. She knows I practice Falun Dafa, and yeah, I gave her this Minghui booklet. If anyone wants to read them, they you can get them on the Minghui website, it's the Falun Dafa website. It just shares people's like stories and experiences and the benefits of Falun Dafa, and she read through that and she thought it was really good. So
Nice. Actually, you remind me of a couple of things I wanted to share with everyone. Very much same as Louis, my mind, probably like most of you watching, was just a modern mind. It naturally didn't have any religious thoughts, any spiritual thoughts, or if there were spiritual thoughts, I'd go back to like Deepak Chopra or Wayne Dwyer. You know what I mean? Like people who've become modern spiritualists. That was about as far as I would think about these things. And uh, there have been times in my life, my own grandmother-in-law or great-grandmother-in-law is one of them, where as a certain person got to know me, they would say to me, if they were Christian, which she is, why aren't you Christian? Why aren't you? Gosh, you guys, you're like, whoa, this is what this is what we're taught too. This is the kind of things, everything you guys are, the kinds of selflessness yet hardworking. Um, uh, the, she would say to me quite often, and with absolute sincerity, "Why aren't you Christian, Michael? Oh my goodness!" And I mean, she's just a fantastic woman. She's also a woman who's followed. She's had her things to deal with too. Obviously, none of us are perfect. We all cultivate to become a better person because we're not great. There's things about us that aren't great. So she's had her things as well, but at her core is the Christian belief, Jesus and the Bible. And then when I was working in factories at one stage, I had to enter the workforce all of a sudden. And I went and worked in factories, margarine factories, bread factories, just with a recruitment agent. And this was an interesting one. I remember there was a man there who was Islamic in some way or another. I don't know, can't remember exactly where he was from. But I remember when I first saw him, and that's what I remember when I first started practicing Falun Dafa, my ability to see a person more for who they are in a good way became intrinsically better.
Mm.
Before, to be honest, um, and I guess this is part of being in a modern society, I would always see the negative in people. That was the first thing that I'd focus on. Actually, Louis, that video that we did, I think we showed everyone. Have a look back in our episodes, everyone. But it was like more of a very beautifully done kind of video presentation of practitioners. And one of the ladies said, I used to always look at people and think, I don't like the
Mm.
way they do that. I don't like that about that person. And then a little bit afterwards, she says, and Falun Dafa has really taught me to look at people differently, very differently. And that she said that so very quickly because it was just part of a presentation. But here with Louis and I actually really discussing these points, I can tell you it changes just that one aspect of what Falun Dafa teaches you. Just that one changes you as a person. It changes you on how you see your neighbor, the person walking past you, the person you meet in the street, your wife, your mother, your grandmother. And this man, I remember when I first saw him in the lunchroom, I was in a massive factory, massive bread factory. And I saw him in the lunchroom. He was always by himself. He was always by himself. And each time I saw him, I couldn't, I know this sounds strange, everyone, but I couldn't help but get this image of um, some kind of upright sheikh or sheik or whatever you call them in the middle of the desert, riding his horse out there defending the weak or whatever. I really got that feeling very strongly. Although, to be honest, on the outside, because like he had the normal Islamic beard, quite long, he was relatively young, but also he looked very much like a warrior, very hard looking man. And I remember about 6 months later, I was doing the grain room, and in a bread factory, you've basically got these huge bins, and you pick up these 20-kilo sacks of grain, of wheat, of barley, of malt, or salt, and it's hard yakka. And he walked in, and he was delivering a pallet of a certain grain, and he walked up to me and he said, "What do you do? What do you do spiritually?" First words he ever talked to me. And I said to him, I practice a Buddhist way called Falun Dafa. And he said, will you sit with me and tell me about this practice? He said, because you should be of Islam. You should be of the Quran. He said, I've watched you now for a long time. He said, you never slack off, even when you're alone. I walk past, I see you when you're alone in the grain room. You don't slow down. I've seen you back up other people when they're in trouble on part of our conveyor line. He said, you should be of the Quran. He said, but I'll be interested to hear what you do. And so we sat and I told him just the basics about Falun Dafa being a way of the Buddhist school. And at the end, he said, oh, you should still be Islamic. You should still be of the Quran. He said, because everything I've practiced in my life, you have so many things there. He said, this Falun Dafa must be good. And so that's just, in this episode, what I really wanted to elaborate further on is, with Louis, I just asked Louis before we came on. I didn't tell him what I was going to ask him. Not in the actual questions. I just I just said to Louis, let's use this episode to elaborate more on this particular thing. And I hope you too could see that when I said to Louis, what does Teacher Lee require of you? Louis had to sit there and think because it was like, well, Teacher Lee doesn't friggin' require anything of us, to be honest. He just gives us the things that have probably never been given to the whole world before, nowhere near it, and just says one thing, which is what Louis mentioned. Teacher Lee just says, study the far and study the far more. And as far as the exercises go, I had the same impression when I first started. Teacher Lee emphasizes the study because he makes very, very clear that in a world such as ours, and in the whole path of spiritual cultivation, you need to keep that energy flowing through you to remind you of who you want to be, but who comes out in you every single day. The things that you need to change in yourself to be following a true spiritual path and elevating yourself as a person and as a being. So, in this episode, um, that's what Louis and I really wanted to highlight. Now, I'll ask Louis one more question, and then I'll elaborate on that in my sharing, and then we'll leave you guys with that. I hope by now, talking about that, I hope by now you know that we have an email address for you to email us with any questions you might have or thoughts. Louis, what's that email address again?
Yeah, so it's Dafa discussions at proton.me, and I'll put it on the screen, but I'll also put it in the description
Oh,
for everyone.
please, yeah, whack it up on the
Yeah.
screen, mate. Because any of you that don't speak such great English that are watching this, but you are keeping up with us, yeah, that'll really help. Uh, and also, please, you can do normal things with us, like us. I don't know, you like it, and then you click something that you
Share, follow.
okay. So you can so I believe something comes to you that notifies you that another episode's up to come and watch. But also, from what I understand, when you do those things, you help us to reach more people as well. I think. I think that,
Yeah.
yeah. So, um, and the other thing is, you can comment in any of our episodes. We've had quite a few people commenting. We've actually had quite a few people following us. Um, but you can comment with whatever you like. Like if you're a young Chinese woman or man who still believes that Falun Dafa is this horrific thing, this horrific cult, that the government's doing a good thing by, jailing and torturing them and then harvesting their organs, pop something up there if you want. We can try to help you to see a lot more links that will prove to you that your own government is not only lying to you, but has deceived you in ways that are beyond reproach. And that Falun Dafa is actually a beautiful thing, like it was in your country when it first began for those years. Even the regime, the communist regime, was helping to highlight it in amongst China because it was healing so many people's bodies,
Mm.
literally healing so many people's bodies. So Teacher Lee has really developed something that powerful simply to help people see that the way forward in our human lives is in truth, compassion, and tolerance. And it really is that powerful. It sounds crazy, but those things actually are really that powerful, powerfully healing, powerfully soothing. Um, and so please just leave a comment, any of you, because I believe that when you leave a comment, you're also helping for us to reach more people. It actually, I believe, ranks higher or something, or does something anyway, that is a positive thing, for our show. Now, I did have a really good question and I've lost it in my mind, as
uh,
as our middle-aged older men do. But actually, we've been going nearly 40 minutes already. And everyone, we do like to give you a good hour's worth, because, again, we've been told that to do a solid hour and to really have that there for you for each episode is actually a, a lot of information and beauty about what we're trying to get across to you. But having said that, with just Louis and I on today, I think we've covered fairly clearly the points that we wanted to cover and the essences that we wanted to get across to you. Louis, is there anything you can think of that you might want to end up on and let everyone know or talk about?
no, not really, but yeah, definitely check out our other episodes in the last two parts. We took apart some videos from YouTube that were a bit critical of Shen Yun and Falun Dafa, and we kind of broke down their kind of what they were saying and giving you our perspective on it, which kind of gives you a bigger picture than just what they're saying.
A
So,
truer picture as well.
yeah.
Every
Yes.
time we come on, that's another part of just giving you the true insights into Falun Dafa, because everything's there for you, by the way. I've never seen a cult who puts everything blatantly onto the internet,
Mm.
creates an
It's so open.
association just so it is more part of an openness within the society. Teacher Lee himself stated that any country where there's Falun Dafa practitioners, make an association. So you're part of the government can see us for who we are, you're part of your councils. Like, this is really, this is so the opposite to a cult. If I had to put it in any other way, I'd I'd say it's an incredibly powerful movement of traditional goodness within the world.
Mm.
It's got to be a good thing. And
Yeah.
what else were you mentioning, Louis?
Oh, that was about it. But yeah, you won't find any real secrets in. If you go on farmduffer.org, every single lecture Master Lee's ever given is on there. So,
That's right.
and that's what makes it so easy for CCP to take things out of context and
Yeah.
create these stories for everyone to believe. But it's all up there, and yeah.
And it's so easy to bludgeon good people.
Mm.
It's got to be the foulest deed on earth, to be honest. Bludgeon good people. I liken it to stealing candy from a baby, or having one of our beautiful handicapped people in society, and a person walks up and steals their Coke out of their hand and walks away. Like, it's just disgraceful. And that's
Mm.
why, for example, the video we showed you of the young Chinese man trying to slur Falun Dafa and Shen Yun. Shen Yun, for any of you who don't know in this episode, is a glorious, absolutely top level Chinese dance um, production company, theatre production company. They are taking the world by storm. Absolutely beautiful. The way the young Chinese man did it was in the most abusive, confusing, abhorrent style of doing things in video. Just taking anything and everything he could and twisting it into something disgraceful or not good. Like, really, these things are so obvious. So we hope that you yourselves can see the obviousness in it now. Especially, we hope that what we're doing here each week is giving you clarity about Falun Dafa. Louis, you're amazing. Thank you, my man.
Thank you, Michael.
And you guys, you're amazing too. The fact that you come back and watch us is just amazing. And we'll keep having interviews. Once we've really gone through Australia and New Zealand, then we'll really start to try to get more practitioners around the world who can speak English quite well. But every one of them, you'll start to get a feel that every one of them has a similar message. Falun Dafa has just done beautiful things for them in every way in their lives. It'll be the same message, but we want you to see more and more of them so that, see, like me, some of you identify with me. Some of the blokes that get on here will go, oh gosh, Mike's actually a decent guy, or identify with Louis. Wow, Louis is a bit like me. I really like the way he talks, or the thoughts he has in his mind, or what he does. And for example, Jess, Jess, a very high achieving lady in the, what was it, marketing and media industry.
Mm.
I think she worked on Neighbours. Neighbours is a very, very famous um, soap opera kind of thing here in Australia. Um, uh, she's a very talented woman. She practices Falun Dafa. Very talented young man right next to me practices Falun Dafa. So we'll keep bringing more and more people on, and you can really hear from all their perspectives how Falun Dafa
Mm.
has been amazing in their lives. See you later, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.